Welcome to Around the Exchange Table, where we're serving up stories of culture, connection, and community. Each episode will share real experiences from students, host families, and coordinators who make international exchange possible. So pull up a chair and let's explore the world of cultural exchange one story at a time. Hello and welcome to Around the Exchange Table. I'm Sandrine Clement, your host, and joining me today is longtime host mom and local coordinator Jamie Smock. We're going to talk about the first 30 days of hosting. But before we dive in, Jamie, why don't you introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about how you got into hosting in the first place?
Okay, thanks, Sandrine. Yeah, we got into hosting in 2009. There was an ad in the paper, and it just suggested trying and volunteer opportunity, host an exchange student. That was the extent of it. It was 2 sentences and a phone number. And so we reached out, and quickly we were thrown into the whirlwind of choosing a student and having a home visit and connecting with our students. So that was in 2009, so 16 years ago.
Wow, that was a long time ago. So I'm hoping this next question isn't too hard for you to remember, but we're talking about the beginning of hosting. And so I'd love to hear, what do you remember about welcoming your first exchange student? Were you able to connect with them before they arrived? And what was it like meeting them at the airport?
Yeah, so that really ages me back to 2009, but we didn't have smartphones back then, and video calls and wasn't really a thing. So we exchanged about probably a couple dozen emails in the 6 months before he arrived. And then once we got a little bit closer, I believe there was one brief phone call, but of course it was an international call. So it was just pretty much to hear each other's voices. And then that was the end of that. When we met him at the airport, though, it was much like it is today. There didn't seem to be any, uh, you know, surprises or anything. We were super excited and got in the car and we started our adventure with him.
I hadn't even thought of that, about the fact that we didn't have all the technology that we have today that allows the student and host family to connect before they even meet each other. So that must have been even more excitement on the day of the airport. And so you picked them up at the airport. So this is what all our host families do. They go to the airport and pick up their students and then bring them home. Do you remember how you made your students feel welcome into your home and your family on that first day?
Yeah, so prior to him arriving, we still had a profile with photos of him and his family and of his friends. So we went ahead and printed those off, probably at CVS or something, who knows where at the time. And we printed them off and I put him in little frames in the bedroom so that the room felt like his. I had also asked, I knew he was big into soccer, what his favorite soccer team was, and I found a poster of that team and hung it in the room just so that it would make it feel like it was his space when he arrived. So I wanted it to feel like his room.
I think that's such a sweet gesture. So you just told us a little bit about what you did with the room to prepare it before you arrive. Is there anything else that you do with your family or around the house to prepare for exchange students?
Well, we always try to ask, if there's any foods that they really like or that they dislike, because, uh, of course, the student is going to say, I like everything, but there's always something that they may not like. And so try to have maybe something in the home that they would, that they're going to eat that first meal before we get to the grocery store. And then just kind of showing them around the house and making them feel comfortable. We've never done big parties when the students have arrived or had people waiting. I feel like it's overwhelming for the student to walk into a party of even more people they don't know. So definitely more on the low key side of just, hey, this is our home, and giving them the tour. And then usually drive them around the neighborhood, let them know, kind of give their bearings in order.
Can see how throwing a big party might sound exciting, but be a little bit overwhelming for the exchange students. I'm really curious. I'm going off script for a second here, but is there a place that you take your exchange students to eat for the first time when they first arrive? Do they have somewhere that they're always excited to go to?
Well, we are in Texas, so it's usually going to be like a Texas style restaurant, even if it's or barbecue place, or sometimes it's going to be something Texas themed. We want them to get right into the Texas feel, and that's what they've been looking forward to. Something fun is like a restaurant, like where they maybe will throw the peanuts on the floor or something, really just kind of surprise them with something totally different.
A way to throw them right into the Texas culture. I think that's such a big thing. We have obviously there's American culture, but I think Texas culture is its own thing. So how exciting that the students get to discover that for themselves. And now a little bit more serious. When your student arrives, is there any first week conversation that you have with your students, either that you had at the time or maybe something that you've learned over the year that's important to address in the first week?
For sure. We like to set those expectations early. Oftentimes people will say, we don't have any rules. There are no rules in our house. We're very free and easygoing. And everybody has rules. If it's, don't let the cat out or whatever those house rules that you have that are unspoken. Students don't know. They've never been in your home. You can't assume that they know anything. So we do like to walk them through pretty much everything as far as curfew and house rules and make sure that they understand those expectations, because not knowing and then dealing with the consequences of them doing something wrong that they didn't even know was expected isn't fair. So we do try to sit them down and really prepare them for, what we're looking for and also what they're looking for. It's definitely important. One thing we do like to do, kind of to make it even more interactive instead of just like, here are the rules, like how fun is that, is have them create a wish list of things that they maybe have seen on, Instagram or TikTok in Texas or maybe beyond. And we say, we can't guarantee we're going to do all of these things, but what is something you would love to do while you're on program? And we do try to make that happen if we are able to.
I love that. I love the idea of setting the expectations, but also like thinking ahead of making it exciting for them and kind of combining the two. But talking about expectations and rules that you brought up, what's how do you approach setting the expectations? So for our listeners who might not be familiar with a student exchange, the students aren't just guests in the family. They become real family members. And that means having chores, paying attention to the rules, sticking to the schedules.
Mhm.
So how do you set these expectations, especially around the chores and the schedules and the rules?
We actually have a little guide and we call it Surviving the Smock Home. It's kind of a joke, but just kind of, everything from, and it's not long. I've seen some people go, 5 pages. That's going to overwhelm the student, but just, you know, these are, these are the times that we get up. This is the Wi-Fi code. This is emergency contacts that you haven't met these people yet, but this is my sister's phone number. This is our neighbor's number. These are the people that you may need to reach out to, as well as, hey, in America, we dial 911 if there's emergency, because a lot of Americans don't realize that in other countries, the emergency code is not the same. And so for them to know that it is 911 for emergencies for fire, if someone is, hurt, then that would be the emergency. And just kind of giving them that basic list, and then something that they can hold on to and refer back to is super helpful. And often we actually give that to our students before they arrive if they ask. We've had a lot of students ask, well, what are the rules of your home? And so we can email that to them. They can review it with their parents, and we say, hey, if you have any questions about any of this, or if any of this doesn't sound fair to you, let us know. And that's really worked well for us. I do just warn not to create a 40-page PDF with every possible scenario, but just the main highlights.
Yeah, it's important to set the ground rules, but still be ready for changes during the year. So, part of the experience of a high school exchange student is that they live with a host family like yourselves, but they also attend a local high school. Is there anything that you do either as a host mom or as a local coordinator to help the students adjust to this new school and the new classmates?
Absolutely. So we definitely lean towards students that have some type of interest where they're going to be able to plug into the school. I think it's super important for the students to find their people in the school. And part of that would be if they're going to be playing a sport. So we've hosted 5 boys and 5 girls. Almost all of the boys have wanted to play football, which is great. We call the football coach before school starts and ask him if they can jump into that first practice when they hit the ground. They're probably going to be late, but if they can do that before they even walk into the first day of school, that's a great way for them to meet some local kids. if we know any friends at the time, or if we had any family members that were also in high school, we would introduce them beforehand to them so they would have some connection to the school. Worst case scenario, if you're in a town and you don't know anybody and they're not going to play a sport, at least get them up to the school before school starts so they can see the school and hopefully get a tour of the school. But it is important for them to find their group of people, and we just encourage them to join some type of activity right away when they enter. And they don't have to keep doing it. We had one boy that tried, and after 2 weeks, he had made several friends, but football was not his cup of tea. So off he went to do something else, but at least it was a stepping stone for him.
Yeah, and these extracurricular activities, there's something that the students are usually super excited about as well. That's really important for them to make the new friends. So I'm glad to hear that you kind of encourage them and give them that stepping stone. I know you mentioned earlier you don't do a big party when they arrive because that's a bit overwhelming, but do you do any special activities? Do you plan fun stuff for the first month, or do you like to keep it low key to let them settle in?
We've done both, honestly. I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer here. We've done, one year we weren't going to host, and we had a big trip to Disney with one of my nephews. And it was the first weekend that the student arrived. We took them on that trip. They'd been here a couple days. They had an amazing time. Other times we've had years where we just, the big event is going to the grocery store, and everything is going to be new for them. Everything from sitting at this kitchen table to operating the washing machine to walking around the neighborhood. So it isn't necessary to do huge activities. Most of the students are going to find that the small things are super exciting. So, but if there is something that your family's doing, like in like the case when we went to Disney, it worked out fine. And but we don't have something like a list of things that must be done that first month. They are here usually for 5 to 10 months, so you don't have to fit everything into that first month. That's the great thing about hosting is it isn't guest that's coming to experience your culture for a week or two. You get a long time with them.
You can spread out your activities and kind of get to do that over the extended of the 5 to 10 months. And so obviously I introduced you as a host mom and a local coordinator. So for those of you who don't know what a local coordinator is, they're representative of SDS Foundation and they support the students and the families during the year. So you've been a local coordinator with us for some time as well as being a host mom. As a local coordinator who provides that support, is there a common challenge that you see host families struggle with in those first 30 days?
Absolutely. The good news is I've been in their shoes and can empathize with the desire to want to treat the student as a guest. They are not a guest. If you set the expectation that you're going to do everything for them and drive them everywhere and that they can do whatever they want because they're a guest in your home, then that's what they're going to do. You've told them that that's okay in that behavior. Communication is super important. It's super important to set those expectations, and when those small problems come up, to not brush them off as saying, "Well, it's okay because they're adjusting," or, "Oh, it's okay because they're only here for a short time. We're going to allow that." 5 to 10 months is a very long time to put up with things that are unacceptable in your home and that will eventually lead to the breakdown of the relationship. So I strongly recommend communicating and setting those expectations with the student. And when those small problems arise, to call the local coordinator, at least let them know what's going on, and hopefully they can offer some tools to get those behaviors back to where those expectations are. Because a lot of times the students don't realize that they're not meeting those expectations because they've never been laid out properly.
And that's what you mentioned, one of the first thing that you do as a host mom is setting those expectations. I think that's really important. And we talk about that a lot in the world of exchange programs, the expectations. And so one of the things that I've asked you, you talked a little bit about what host families struggle with. Now, something that we know exchange students struggle with at the beginning, and it's not going to be every exchange student, but some of them do struggle with homesickness. Is there a best way to handle it in your experience? Have you had a student that experienced homesickness, and how did you help them overcome this difficult period of their exchange?
Yeah, unfortunately, we have had some students that have experienced homesickness, and they're very good often at hiding it. They don't want to share that they aren't doing well. They don't want to. let you see them cry. They don't want to let you know that they're struggling. It's very frustrating to think everything is going great and then to find out that they are not doing well. Again, going back to communication, not just asking, "Are you okay?" but maybe digging in a little bit further onto what's going on. Long conversations with home, or if a student is agitated after speaking to home, those are good indications that there's something deeper going on than just missing home. I explain homesickness to students and to host families as like a breakup or grieving. It's a feeling that they have physically. It's not just it's just not a thought. It's a physical feeling. And students that struggle with homesickness generally are the students that are not plugged in. If a student is playing basketball and is on a basketball team and they're getting up at 6 a.m. and practicing 2 hours before school and 2 hours after school, and they have tournaments on the weekends, there sure isn't a lot of time to be sitting in their room thinking about home or contacting home or scrolling through their old photos. Keeping a student busy is the ultimate way to combat homesickness. So if they are not involved with activities yet, you do activities all day long when you're off work. You're making dinners, you can have them help prepare meals, you can go for a walk with them, you can play a game. You could do a lot with them, but them sitting in their room alone is what's going to feed that homesickness and make it even harder for them to finally overcome it.
Thank you for sharing this great advice, Jamie. I think getting the students engaged and busy, but still recognizing that homesickness is real and is something that the students can challenge, can struggle with, especially at the beginning of the program. Now, talking a little bit more about some fun things. So a lot of reason why host families choose to host is to experience a different culture and to exchange this culture. So can you tell me in your experience, how do cultural differences show up in day-to-day life when you're hosting a foreign exchange student?
Yeah, so they can be anything from fun, like fun things that pop up, funny things, to awkward, like, oh, wow, that was different. When it comes to words that may mean one thing in one language, it means something totally different in another language. Those things can kind of take you back. But ultimately, when you learn from them, they could be super fun. The students are are gonna be fine if you embrace their culture and hopefully they embrace yours, but sometimes they are kind of awkward things that will come up, miscommunications, just overall kind of quirky things that you'll see that are gonna be different. One thing that I try to express to my students that we've hosted and to students that have hosted that I've overseen as a local coordinator is to keep things positive. So we try not to let them use the word weird. They want to say, oh, that's weird. This is weird. Weird has a very negative connotation. You wouldn't tell someone that their outfit is weird. So we want to say that it's different. So you signed up for different, and this is different. But using weird is getting them out of that negative mindset that it's better one way or the other. It's just different. So that's one way that we try to combat that negativity in maybe some homesickness combined with culture shock there.
We often say it's not bad, it's not good, it's just different.
Correct, yeah.
Really highlighting all of that. Yeah. So going back to preparing for the exchange student arriving, what's one tip that you would give to a family to help them prepare before their student arrives?
Well, I would say the biggest tip, if you do nothing else, I mean, we know that the room is there. We've been in the home. We can see that they have the space for them physically, but is to create that relationship before they arrive. Now with the video communication, I always tell my families, don't just write one email, don't just have one video call. The more that you connect with the student, the more comfortable they're going to be. The difference between a hug and a handshake at the airport is going to be a couple video calls. You want to make sure that they're comfortable with you. They've heard your voice. They maybe have seen your home, walk them through. They need to meet all of the family members on video. And also, if you can meet their natural parents, then that's great too. So that everyone kind of has a peace of mind and knows where they're going. If you avoid that, you're going to have a harder start. This is like a kickstart to the program if you can build that relationship before the student arrives.
That's right. So that you don't arrive as strangers. You already know each other when the student arrives at the airport, which is how we get those amazing, heartwarming arrival videos and photos of students and host families hugging like they've known each other forever. And then thinking about just the first 30 days, if you as a host family are giving a tip to a host family, could focus on only one thing in those first 30 days, what would it be?
I mean, just one thing is difficult, but probably just building respect and trust and that communication, right? So you can't, that's the building block for every relationship is going to be communication. You need to talk to your student. You need to listen to what they're saying. You need to make sure they understand what you're saying and to really connect with them. The students that we've connected with early on, it makes the year so much better. It makes the less likely to have a change in placement, letting them know that you're there for them and that they're safe and that if they need anything, you're their person. So really just building that relationship. The trips, the fun things, the seeing the sights can come later. Who cares about any of that if you're sitting in the car with someone you don't know?
Yeah, it's about that communication and building relationships. That's what we're doing here. We're building bridges across culture. We're connecting people from different backgrounds with each other. Thank you for sharing that, Jamie. And putting your local coordinator hat back on for a minute here, do you have a secret weapon that you use to help support the students and the host families in those 30 days?
For me personally, I just try to reach out. Lots of texting. I don't want to be too much. It's not about me, it's about them. So I need to be there for them to support them. So it isn't about me trying to take the student or to tell the student all the fun things that they're going to experience, but really to support them. And the way that I do that best is to let them know that it's going to be awkward. There are going to be moments where you realize there's a stranger living in your home. There's gonna be moments when the student realizes that they're on the other side of the world. There's gonna be times when things are confusing, and there's gonna be times when the student doesn't show up at the meeting spot because they didn't understand. Just to kind of embrace it all and know that it's a transition period for everyone, and everyone is adjusting, and it's gonna be okay. There's nothing we cannot fix that is going to ruin anything. So just kind of embrace it and to just know that I'm here to for them to reach out for really anything.
That's great. And we appreciate so much all the support that our local coordinators give to our host families and our students. You truly are the center of our program. And it's thanks to local coordinators like you, Jamie, that all of this is it's possible. I want to ask you, and again, it doesn't have to be from your very first exchange student because it's been a while, I know. But what's your favorite memory from your first month with an exchange student?
Honestly, it's such a good question, and this one just kind of racks my brain a little bit because there's so many memories of our students and in the fun things that we've done and we've experienced, and they almost never are about a trip. They're gonna be something in everyday life that is gonna be something that you remember. It could be anything from going to students' first football game and seeing them dress up in the gear and seeing how excited they are and realizing they look at you like, "I'm living my dream," to them going to a restaurant and realizing we have free refills and they just got another Coke and they didn't ask for it. And then they hurry up and drink that one as fast as possible to see the magic trick of another one appearing. Those things are all just so fun to I mean, there's one time I can just sticks out where we went to the grocery store and we said, "Pick out a box of cereal and meet us back in the next aisle or whatever. I'll be down by the cheese." I don't know. And after quite a while, I went back and the student's still standing there and just kind of like, "How do I pick? There's so many cereals. We only have this small area back home and there's, you know, 300 feet of cereal. How do I choose?" And just really going, wow, I never thought about that. And you see your own culture through their eyes, which is kind of neat. So lots of moments, lots of fun memories, lots of laughs, lots of tears sometimes, getting students through things, and lots of celebrations.
I love that you share that. And I think what I'm hearing is that it's the small moments that seem to stick with you rather than the big trips, like you said, or like the big adventures. It's gonna be those small things that really make you feel like you've gained a new family member. And then this is my last question for you, Jamie. Thank you so much. You've been so amazing sharing all of this with us, both as a host mom from your experience, but also as a local coordinator sharing with us tips to help future host families. What would be your one sentence piece of advice for making the first 30 days a great success?
Yeah, so I would say keep communication open, set clear expectations, and focus on building a welcoming relationship rather than a perfect relationship.
I love that. We're not looking for perfection here. We're just looking for welcoming host families. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jamie. It was such a pleasure having you on today and hearing from your experience as a host mom, as a local coordinator. Like I said, we really appreciate everything that you do. And thank you again for being here, Jamie.
Thank you, Sandrine.